Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening as we go through the strategic plan that was recently implemented at Great Lakes Family Housing. The purpose of this analysis was to assess the functionality of the asset as a whole based solely on staff performance. Now, my name is Megan Mills. I currently have close to 6 years of experience within our industry in several different markets. I have worked in the Southern California market, in the San Bernardino counties, as well as San Diego counties, and as well as the Omaha, Nebraska market, and currently working in the northern Chicago suburbs. I specialize in transitioning struggling assets into performing entities, and that has been my specialty ever since my beginning within the industry. I currently am the manager at Great Lakes Family Housing, and my tenure with Hunt Companies and Great Lakes is a little bit over a year now. So Great Lakes Family Housing as a whole, just to give you a little bit of background, is a military housing community with just under 1,500 active homes that can be leased. Many of those homes are outside of the gate, available to not only military but also civilians. And then we also have about 30 homes that are behind the base gates that are only accessible to our service members. Previously, within the last few years, the Great Lakes Family Housing entity was a government-ran entity. However, they realized that they did not have enough experience. They didn't have the knowledge within their organization to be able to manage so many military housing communities throughout the United States, not only just here in Great Lakes, Illinois. And so they decided to venture out, and they established themselves as a public privatized venture, otherwise known as PPV housing. And basically what that means is that they went from being a government-ran entity and they hired a third-party management company to manage the day-to-day operations and control the financials for the asset. Originally, when the Navy transitioned Great Lakes Family Housing into a PPV housing community, they hired on a management company called Forest City Residential. Forest City, unfortunately, was unable to uphold the contract that they originally signed with the Navy. Their resident satisfaction was down. A lot of different things were not being done properly, and they just weren't running a successful business. So the Navy terminated Forest City Residential's contract, and they hired on a new company called Hunt Companies, which started in 2017. Once Hunt Companies took over the Great Lakes Family Housing portfolio, they took a couple of months, of course, to train the staff. They didn't really do very much of a staff overhaul. They really wanted to see if it really was the staff or if it was a combination of staff and the management company prior. They really wanted to get a feel for that. And so they held on to the staff and they started training them in the Hunt policies, procedures, how they expected things to be done. Unfortunately, even through all of that training and everything that Hunt did to ensure the success of this particular portfolio here in Great Lakes, the community was still failing. And so the Hunt Companies, the upper management, they performed an initial functional assessment analysis that was completed in April of 2018. The results of this assessment ended up in a decision to complete a management overhaul where they took all of the upper management, on-site management, everybody, they terminated all of those positions and they brought in new staff. Even after the last couple of months, and the management overhaul actually took place and was and was completed in October of 2017. And even through all of the policy changes and everything that was implemented and all of the staff changes that happened in between, the staff still can't complete their work within company expectations. So it was decided that we needed to perform a follow-up functional assessment or analysis. So within this presentation, we're going to identify the following. We're going to check out the purpose and the style of the analysis that was conducted. We're also going to look at a breakdown of where the staff production was prior to this analysis and it being implemented, where they are currently, and where we're expecting to be within the next 2 to 3 years. We will also identify and show you the SWOT analysis that displays feedback of both the subordinate staff as well as upper management and corporate level management. We are going to show you the suggested strategies that improved overall functionality with an explanation of its viability and feasibility and how that was determined. And then we are also going to show you one specific example of a strategy that worked very well, how it was implemented, how it played out, and what the end results are currently and where we are moving with it in the future. So the type of strategic analysis that we performed for Great Lakes Family Housing, again, as mentioned before, is more of a functional analysis. The reason we chose this is because we wanted to follow up on the initial functional analysis that was performed back in 2017 by Hunt initially. We wanted to see what exactly had been done since that time, what worked, what didn't, and fill in the gaps to ensure that we could figure out every little area that we needed to make improvements on. Another reason why is we wanted to make sure, and we did a comparison of Great Lakes Family Housing to other sister properties that are within the Hunt Company's portfolio. Many of those sister properties are performing to expectation, and minus a few little things here and there. And so this eliminated the corporate and business strategy analysis, because clearly what Hunt is doing and their mission and values and their policies and all that, it is working in other portfolios. We also wanted to look at the daily observations and the interactions by management with their staff on site to determine the functionality and how that's working. And it was determined that that functionality was still in fact lacking. So how did we do this analysis? We performed interviews initially and the reason for those interviews is we wanted to determine the current struggles and the desired solutions. And we wanted to get that feedback from all different titles within the Great Lakes Family Housing staff. So we so we'll go through that as well. We also performed a SWOT analysis, and we broke that down into separate strategies in order to improve performance. So let's look at that SWOT analysis for a moment. First of all, in order to get the information that we needed to perform the SWOT analysis effectively, we had to conduct those interviews that I mentioned earlier. Those interviews were conducted with current subordinate staff, on-site management, upper-level off-site management, as well as corporate-level management. I also should throw in here that the Navy was also a part of this. They weren't interviewed directly, but we did use many of the conversations from upper management in order to develop these needs as well. So they really should be included, although they weren't interviewed directly. And so what we did is we looked at the strengths, the weaknesses internally within our organization, and then we also looked at external opportunities and threats. What we came up with is that we have a lot of strengths here at Great Lakes Family Housing. We have an able staff. We have a positive work environment. We have consistent evolution of procedures and staff training. The staff is involved in many of the decisions and they are empowered to be innovative. Management is also engaged and responsive to staff issues and feedback. Some of the weaknesses that we determined through these interviews is that some of the staff are not pulling their weight. Some of the staff feel that they do not have enough time to complete their work in a timely manner, not enough employee retention activities to keep those employees happy and excited to come to work daily. And they're also stating that they believe that management is not trained in their duties. Therefore, we cannot assist or really understand the struggles associated with their roles. So there isn't really a lot of room for empathy, is what they're saying. Some of those external opportunities that we have is that we have additional trainings available for the staff to increase efficiency and knowledge. The staff could volunteer in community events to show the company's dedication in making a positive impact. We'll go into this a little bit later if you take a look at the actual analysis, the full executive summary that was created in combination with this presentation, there is a large section of that as well within that, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. They're stating that we could push harder for corporate to approve a full-time front desk associate to open up more time for the staff, as well as additional RSS positions. They're saying that we can also partner with outside companies to provide more employee and resident retention activities. Some of the threats that we experience due to external situations that we don't have a ton of control over is that the PCS season, again, we deal with military, so the PCS season is so busy that staff has difficulty keeping up with their workload during those busy summer months. Illinois also favors the resident over the landlord, which extends the eviction process and creates an additional workload. Many qualified applicants are requiring more pay than we are actually budgeted to give. Unemployment is low, so there are more opportunities for qualified applicants. So because we cannot give them the pay that they're looking for, they are less likely to come to us. And then if we don't perform to expectation, we could lose our contract with the Navy, same as Forest City Residential did. So what we did is we went ahead and we took all of this feedback and all of these opinions and all of these things, and we established a pipeline matrix, which essentially we took all of these different things that the staff wanted, and that, again, upper management staff, everyone. And we divided it into a couple of different groups to see the viability and the feasibility and all of those things combined. And what we did is that's 4 different groups. The revolutionary group, that's going to establish if there are any of these ideas that are going to bring in something brand new that has never been done before. The evolutionary A section, that's going to be something where we are adding to what we already have, but it still could be considered something new. It may even cost a little bit more money. Right below that, you're going to see incremental, that category. These are going to be things that we can do within our organization without bringing in anything different. And then we also have the evolutionary B category. And these are things that don't cost a ton of money, but they are things that we could bring into and evolve within the incremental areas of what we do. Once we established the pipeline matrix and we divided all of these things up, we did determine that we wanted to make sure that we were actually capable of developing these things or acquiring these things. And so we did a capability assessment. And the capability assessment it's a breakdown to ensure that we have the people, the time, the money, and the infrastructure that is required to bring these things to fruition. And so here you're going to see some pluses and some minuses. The pluses indicate that we already have it. It exists. And so the minuses that you see are things that we need to develop and acquire. The beauty of this particular capability assessment is that most of them are pluses. So we already have it. It exists. We just need to be able to implement additional things to ensure that our staff is able to do what they need to do on a daily basis. So these are some different strategies after all of these other things were brought together. Some of these are the top 3 strategies that we decided to implement, to move forward with. And we believe that these strategies down the line are going to be a solid cure for the situations that we currently experience now. The first one, if you look at where it says SMART goal, this is going to be the actual goal in mind of what we're trying to do. The first strategy is to increase employee competence and overall confidence within our staff. Because each employee, as you see up here, the issue, they struggle differently and are asking us specifically for more training opportunities. The purpose of this, as you see below that, is we're going to have increased resident satisfaction because they're getting the same information from everybody. We are actually utilizing Hunt's educational assistance program, where they actually compensate us for different certifications and extended education, those opportunities. And then it'll also prepare our employees for in-house employee promotions. The second goal that we have, or strategy, is going to be to increase office morale and reduce stress. This position in general, both the leasing and the resident service specialist, are very stressful positions, especially in those busy seasons where we have military members running in and out with 70 to 80 of them any given month. And so that's the biggest issue here, is that many of the employees struggle to get along due to varying personalities residing in a small space. The daily stresses of this job also causes many to lash out at their coworkers. So we are stating, by implementing this particular strategy, that it is going to allow staff to get to know each other outside of the office, and this will increase naturally the office morale and naturally decrease the stress-related outbursts directed towards their coworkers. The third strategy that we felt would be instrumental in this initiative would be to hire an appropriate number of staff and determine if our pay structure is in line with the surrounding markets, because our staff cannot currently complete a heavy workload because we have been understaffed. And this is according to the interviews and all of the and the comparisons to sister properties and all of those things. We did determine that we actually were understaffed, and the company cannot find qualified applicants due to budgeted salary restrictions. So the purpose is within hiring an appropriate number of staff will increase productivity of current staff, and a market analysis will ensure that we are in line with like companies in our industry, in our specific area. So a lot of good is going to actually came from these strategies. So I'd like to give you an example of one in particular, one of these strategies, and that is the one that we mentioned earlier of increasing employee competence and overall confidence in our staff. So the first thing that we did, and this happened this year, so our first benchmark was to reach out to each staff member and schedule a one-on-one meeting with them. We wanted to initiate individual self-assessments to identify their strengths, weaknesses, and their ideas for their own self-improvement. From there, management wanted to perform individualized staff assessments. This was on top of the self-assessment that we originally had asked for. The next thing that we did is we met with the staff to collaboratively set up an individual performance management plan. We wanted to determine that the incentives that we were going to offer these employees were specific and special to each employee, because we wanted to make sure that those incentives actually worked, and every employee is clearly different and they are all motivated by different things. The next thing that we did is we set up quarterly follow-up meetings to determine the progress and award based on those predetermined incentives. And so that is where we are at currently. We did actually perform those quarterly follow-up meetings, and we've had 2 of them thus far since the strategic plan had been implemented. And we are on pace to see some great results. The staff is much happier, they are more confident. We have actually already seen in this short period of time an increase in confidence, in the confidence of our residents in our abilities to serve them. We've also seen the increase in of competence in the staff, and they are much happier as a result as well. Year 2, 2019, one of those benchmarks that we're looking for is we want to be able to complete an annual performance review that indicates the employee's increasing confidence and competence. We are already there at this point. However, the actual performance review has not been completed. What we're looking for from that is we're looking at the next benchmark of having 30% of our staff having obtained certifications from the National Apartment Association through the Educational Assistance Program offered by HUNT. Not a ton of our employees statistically have utilized this program, so it's a really big initiative at Great Lakes to make sure that we are offering this and making sure that our employees are aware of this huge benefit. Another benchmark that we have that we are wanting to do is we have our annual 2019 CEL resident satisfaction surveys. Those are done yearly in the month of October. Currently, those scores are pending for 2018, but for 2019, our goal is to move from 19.9% completion and a score of 71 out of 100 to 50% completion with a final score of 83 out of 100. And we are well on pace to do that. Following that, year 3, we are predicting that our annual employee surveys will indicate personalized training efforts are aiding in longer employee tenure with our company. The next benchmark that we're looking for is we are expecting to have 80% of our staff having obtained certifications from the National Apartment Association through the Educational Assistance Program offered by HUNT. And the final benchmark, something that we are very excited about and very optimistic about, is seeing those CEL scores increase to 68% completion with a final score of 87 out of 100. And so we are extremely excited about the results that have occurred because of this functional analysis, the follow-up one. And I think it's important to elaborate that this was a follow-up functional analysis. This is something that was originally done by upper management prior to my existence in Great Lakes Family Housing. It was an absolute honor to be able to conduct the subsequent analysis to see exactly where we were and what failed and where we could grow. And it wasn't even necessarily that we failed at the initial functional analysis. It's just that we transitioned and we were able to find some additional areas that really could make our community stronger, to make the staff more confident, happier, more well compensated. There's a lot of different areas that we are able to see, and it was just an absolute pleasure performing this follow-up analysis. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you stopping by and taking a little bit of time out of your evening to hear us out and see exactly what happened with the strategic analysis that was performed within the recent month. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, I hope you have a fantastic evening, and we are very excited about 2019, and we are even more excited about 2020, and to continue to audit and to evaluate our progress based on this particular analysis, and to see Great Lakes Family Housing really shine and to be one of the most improved and one of the most sought out Hunt Company military portfolios within Hunt. So enjoy your evening, and thank you for your time.